So my talk this morning is called Being a Channel for Good, and hopefully I can condense in 20 minutes something that really has been a lifelong quest for me. And I especially have been thinking about how I can best serve, since in St. Louis, if you're here in person, you know this. If you're watching virtually, you may not know. On May 16th, there was a tornado that swept through St. Louis that was extremely devastating, especially to families in North County that were already poverty-stricken. I mean, it was kind of interesting because the tornado hit one of the richest areas of town and one of the poorest areas of town. So the people in the rich areas of town are probably doing okay. The ones in the poor areas of town, many didn't even have insurance on their homes, and I kept seeing on the news stories about, the pictures of the houses destroyed, and then usually some good news stories about people who were there helping. I use Facebook, and there were a lot of posts about how we need boots on the ground, we need people to help, and I'm thinking, I'm being kind of selfish. I should go up there and pick up debris. And then I thought, okay, Laurel, how much weight can you actually lift? I mean, I'm pretty strong, but I don't think I'm strong enough to do a lot of good picking up debris, and I don't have shoes that would protect my feet if I stepped on a nail. And so I thought, okay, I have some money I can give, and I gave to a few different organizations. And then that huge flood happened in Texas, and there were more calls for help and donations, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to go down to Texas. I gave a little bit more money there, but I kept feeling like there has to be more that I can give. And I've talked about him before. There's a man in St. Louis who is a Sikh, S-I-K-H is the name of the religion. They have an organization that used to be called Sikhs of St. Louis, and now it's Sikhs of Missouri. They do amazing service work. And every Sunday, they are out there giving away food for free for anybody who needs it, no questions asked. People don't have to bring proof of income. And immediately after the tornado, he was up there in North County every day, going door to door, giving people fresh food, like fresh fruit, and so that's one of the organizations I gave money to. But I also gave things, like he kept having posts about these are the needs we have. We need cleaning supplies, we need toothpaste, we need toothbrushes. They did a family giveaway, so I donated some coloring books and crayons. I found on Amazon these packages that had individually wrapped together toothbrush and toothpaste. And it seemed like such a little thing to do, but when I went to his home to drop off some of the donations, he said, I am so grateful for you. You don't realize that people give us money, which is absolutely wonderful, but then we have to run around and get these things. And so it's helpful if people give them to us. And those toothbrushes, that was perfect, because to try to break apart a big bulk package and then people come in and grab everything, it's hard. But to have one package that I can give to someone that has a toothbrush and a toothpaste, it was perfect, because it helps us, it saves us time. And I said, what do you need now? And he said, really, we need bleach, because a lot of these places have gotten wet, they're getting moldy, we really need bleach. And he put a post on his page, which I shared on my Facebook page, and immediately, within an hour, a friend of mine saw that post, and she went to a store and bought all the bleach they had, which was 12 gallons, and she brought it over to his house. And she told me, he was amazed. It's like, how did you find out about this? I just knew an hour ago. And she said, well, my friend Laurel posted it on her Facebook page, and then, I went and bought all the bleach I could, and he was so grateful for that. So the point of that is that giving and being of service, it does not have to be a huge thing. It doesn't mean you have to be a huge benefactor where you get your name on a building. I mean, it could be. But it could also be that there's something that seems maybe smaller and significant, but it's not. And especially when collectively people do these things that seem smaller and significant, they build into bigger things. And I mean, sometimes I think people may say, why does it even matter? Well, it matters because in my belief, I think we all have an urge to make sure that our lives have meaning and purpose. And yes, it's important to do things that are fun. You know, you go to concerts, you eat out at good restaurants, you do whatever you do for fun. However, it's also important that our life is used not just for ourselves, but to help others. It's like, in the way that I envision it is that we have each within us a seed of potential. And just like any seed, I don't know if any of you garden, I do, if you treat them well, and if they have the right conditions, they'll grow and blossom and produce whatever, tomatoes, flowers, whatever the seed is. The same thing is true with us, that our seed idea, our potential can grow and blossom when we allow it and when we even look to see how can I express myself. So I've talked about this before. If you've heard me, you may have heard me mention this. A woman who I respect a lot who did some of the early research on death and dying, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was her name. What she found is that the end of life, universally, no matter what race, culture, nationality, people ask the same questions. Did I give and receive love? Did I become all I can be? And did I leave the world a little bit better? And oftentimes in these services, we hear people talk about love, and you know, there's that Beatles song, "All you need is love." Love absolutely is important. It says in the Bible, God is love, so the more loving we are, the more we're expressing our divinity. But love in general is kind of non-specific. And so to think about more specifically, how can I give my love? How can I express myself? How can I serve? I think that helps us to have more meaning. So I think sometimes when people are thinking about, you know, how can I best be of service, they think of it in terms of a job. I'm going to be president of the School of Metaphysics. I actually have been president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. And sometimes people say to me, wow, you're really ambitious because you've been president of these 2 international organizations, you've written and published books, you've traveled all over the world speaking. And one of my students said, you're such a workaholic. And I thought, you do not know me at all, because I am not a workaholic. I really like my downtime. I never had a goal to be president of either of these organizations. So, I mean, how did I get in those positions? Because there was a need and somebody asked me, and I thought about it and meditated on it and thought, okay, that's a way I can serve. And in my mind, that's not even really the best example of how I look at myself as service in the world. I look at the things that might seem small, that when I reflect on my day, I think, wow, I made a difference in that person's life in a small way. So I work at a retail store, and the other day, this woman came in, she's probably my age, maybe a few years older. She had this curly red hair, kind of like a halo around her head, and I was getting her email address to get on the email list. And her email is bedazzled.something@gmail.com. And I thought, wow, that's a fun email. And she said, yeah, I used to make jewelry. I said, oh, it's not because you're so radiant and dazzling? And I wasn't laughing at her, I really meant it. She just had this glow about her, and she just lit up and she said, wow, I can't believe you said that. And then she said, I play bunco every week with these women, and there's one woman there that every week she says, you have to do something with that hair. And I always get my feelings hurt, and I never say anything about it, and so you just made my day. And I thought, wow. You know, that was completely unconscious on my part. And I've had other experiences like that. Like years ago, I lived in the country, and there was a young man who was a college student there, and he had gone home, which to him was St. Louis, to visit his parents, and was sitting on the Metrolink reading a book that I had written. And this woman came up to him, who had seen him reading the book, and he said, I know her, meaning me. And it turns out that this was someone that 7 years prior to that, I worked at temporary job. I used to travel all over, so when I moved to a new place, first thing I would do is go to a temp agency and get a job. So anyway, it was a temporary job working as a file clerk in an office. So I cannot say it was really capitalizing on my skills and talents, but it was a job. And I mean, basically what I did was open the mail and file things or direct them to the right people. And this woman was my supervisor, who was very self-effacing, had issues with her own self-value, and I didn't realize it at the time, but she was kind of bullied by some of the other people in the office who were more ego-driven, and she never said anything about it. She was really soft-spoken, and I was always nice to her. I mean, I liked her. I asked her questions about her life. And so anyway, I didn't realize how much impact I had on her. I only worked there for 3 months, until she went up to this guy who was reading my book, and she said, "I know her. She changed my life." And he said, "How?" And she said, "Everybody who I worked with was always mean to me. They always treated me like I was a piece of you-know-what. And Laurel really was interested in me, and because of her, I really felt like I was important." And again, I had no idea that I had that kind of impact. And it wasn't something I was doing to have an impact. It was just a way that I was expressing myself. And I think that's a really important thing to realize, is that no matter what we do and whatever situation we're in, the more that we can really look to the people around us and see, how can I give attention to this person? How can I serve this person? It might be, doing some big service project. It might be just in a small way. So back to the tornado, I think that there are a lot of people in this community who have looked for ways to give. I know somebody who does a lot of different things, and I saw a post that she made recently that she had sold some pieces of art, and she was donating part of the money that she made from selling the art to tornado recovery efforts. And most of us here know Mitzi McDonald, who plays music here. And the last time that I was here that she played, it was, I guess, about a month ago, she said, "I woke up and I just had this vision of doing a fundraising concert." And I do not know how she did it. She's kind of like a superwoman, because within days, she had gotten together all of these musicians. I mean, lots of musicians. Yeah. She got the Kirkwood Performing Arts Center to donate their Black Box Theater, not just for one night, but for 2 nights. And I think collectively those 2 concerts raised something like $20,000. And that was because her awareness of herself is that the gift that she has is she's a musician, and she's an amazing connector. So using not only her musical gifts, but also her ability to connect, and recognizing that there are all these musicians in St. Louis. I mean, everybody donated their time. So it was so much generosity. And for the people who came, I went to one of the concerts. Clearly the people who were there were enjoying the music and were also there because they wanted to give. And they also passed around, I don't know why they use a boot, but they had this boot they passed around.
It's made of metal too. It's kind of, you gotta be careful.
Right.
You impale yourself on it.
Anyway, they passed that around for people to give extra donations, so most people gave extra donations. Thinking about it's kind of funny, like if someone's getting kicked out of something, you say you give them the boot, so why they have
It's a Nova Scotia thing, I think, really.
Oh, okay.
The boot represents something to her culture.
Okay, yeah, Mitzi's from Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So the point is that I think if we are present in any situation that we're in, we can look to see, how can I best use myself to be of service here? And sometimes we don't even know ahead of time. It's kind of like the example I gave of that woman on the train. I had no idea that I'd had that impact in her life. And so I think sometimes about how many people we may have impacted in our life that we never know. You know, they don't always come back and tell us. I know there have been some people that I wished I had told when they were in my life how good an impact they had on me, and I've tried to find them. And a few of them I've been able to find, but some of them I haven't. So I try when I can to now tell people in the moment if they're having a positive influence on me. And I think that part of what happens is that as we give and help others, we also learn more about ourselves. So what I've learned from being in these positions in these not-for-profit organizations, and one of the reasons why I was asked to be vice president again for this dream organization is the person who is now the chair of the board. She was vice president when I was president, and we had a really good working relationship. We talked well together, we listened to each other, and she said, you know, you're really a team player, and not everybody is like that. Not everybody knows how to cooperate. Not everybody knows how to listen. And sometimes you ask the questions that other people don't. And I thought, wow, I had no idea that I was doing that. I mean, that's something that's kind of hard for me to do when I anticipate that something might raise a conflict. But I do know that one of my skills is to help resolve conflict. So the point of that is we think, how can I best serve, even if we don't really know what that is? And then keep our eyes and ears open. There always will be opportunities to serve. And then as we do that, we can learn more about, hey, what is it that I have to give here? So even in this community, there are people who always set up that back table with all of the flyers and brochures. They clean it up. There are people who set up the coffee and drinks and they clean it up. And I don't know if those people realize how valued they are and how helpful they are. I hope they do. There are many ways that anybody can be of service in whatever we're doing. And I just want to reiterate that sometimes what seems small might by itself be small, but when all of those small things add up collectively, it's huge. And recently, I don't really know why, there's been this little hummingbird that has not even flown around the hummingbird feeders I have. I have 2 hummingbird feeders, and then I have a little kind of like cage that has some flowering plants, and I have some wildflowers that I've planted. So anyway, this hummingbird started just sitting on this cage outside my kitchen window, and it's there pretty much every day. And I've tried to get pictures of it, but when I slide open the glass to get the picture, it flies away. So I've taken a picture through the glass, which is not the same. But it brings me great delight every day to look out the window and see this little hummingbird there. And every once in a while, there's another one that flies around also. And I've looked up hummingbirds and what they mean. There's a few different theories, but one of them is joy and hope. And so I want to read to you this parable that is called Holding Up the Sky, a tale from China. One day an elephant saw a hummingbird lying on the ground with its tiny feet up in the air. "Why are you doing that?" the elephant asked. "Well," said the hummingbird, "I heard that the sky might fall today, so I'm going to help hold it up." And the mighty elephant laughed, and he made fun of him, and he said, "Do you think that those tiny feet can hold up the sky?" And the hummingbird kept his feet up in the air, and he replied, "Not alone, but everyone must do whatever he can, and this is what I can do." So I just want to leave you with an image that I received one time when I was meditating on this question, how can I best serve? And I continue to use it, which is, I envision that there's this light that is around us all. It's the light that we come from, and that it comes down through the crown of my head, and then it flows out through my mouth and how I speak, through my hands and what I do, through my heart and the ways that I'm there for people. And so when I hold that image in my mind, it helps me to be aware of how I can do, whether it's small like the hummingbird or in any other way. So thank you.